That's life, as funny as it may seem. Some people get their kicks stomping on a dream. Oh, we're live. That's your intro. There was no actual intro today, there was no song. But I decided to do that. Well, I didn't actually decide to do that, I didn't know we were recording, but anyway, welcome to another video on That's Life with me, Ryan Gladman, and today will be the second part of the OCR history question structure videos for A-level syllabus, and this one will be about the later Tudors. So this is to do with basically Edward, Mary, Lady Jane Grey, and Queen Elizabeth. And what it does in this topic is you separate the Edward, Mary, Lady Jane Grey, and then you focus on Elizabeth on her own. But I hope you're all well, and we'll go into the video as soon as we'll get into the video now, really. So in this exam you'll have in history in paper, one of these papers, you will have different question structures, and they'll be split into two questions. Sort of section A will be focused on Edward, Mary, and Lady Jane Grey, and that question will be a 30-mark source question, which will give you 4 sources to analyse and to pick out quotes from, and to look at the provenance and origin and who was it written by and things like that. So it will ask you to, using the sources, evaluate the extent to which something is something basically. To value the extent to which female rule was opposed in 1547 following Henry VIII's death, and sort of time, and following Edward's death as well at the same time. Later on. So that idea of analysing sources means you have to compare them at some stage within each paragraph. I would suggest writing an introduction outlining basically which sources agree, disagree, and whether and what your view is about that, and your overriding judgment about using those sources. What the overriding sort of emphasis the sources are giving you, and what you feel is a correct judgment about that. And then once you've written your introduction, I was just writing about 4 paragraphs, so 1 for each source. And remember, in each of these paragraphs, you need to be able to describe what the source is saying by using direct quotations from the source, analyse its provenance, origins, and who's it written by, and the date, because it helped with the reliability and the overall usefulness of the source, and the sort of the validity of how good that source is for the question, the specific question that you've been asked to investigate. And also within that, you need to link that sort of information in the source, so that the words, the context of phrases within the source, to actual knowledge of the time, so contextual knowledge of the time, to show that you have an understanding of what was going on around that time, not just within that source. And then also within the paragraph, it's a good idea to link it to another source, to compare them, and to see whether these two sources or another source has a conflicting view or supporting view. And then that should all help you to reach a sort of a mini judgment on each of the paragraph. A bit like the Italian unification questions, you need your main judgments throughout, and at the end of each paragraph you need to come to a conclusion about what these sources show, but also your overriding judgment within that as well. So if a source says it's agree but you think it's disagree overall, you would say why this source is not so reliable, or why you wouldn't take these opinions in the source as much as you would for the disagree side. And then you do the same throughout all the paragraphs, and you get to the conclusion, and you basically summarise your argument, you summarise what the sources tell you, and what you believe the sources are trying to say in terms of whether they agree, disagree on the whole, and you have to come to a judgment. And if you do all of that, you'll do really well in the 30-mark question. I think it's an hour and a half exam, so I'll probably say around 50 minutes spend time on that. And then you can move on to the second part, which is section B, and it's all about Elizabethan England. So it's about Queen Elizabeth and her government and her finances and everything to do with her reign as queen. And within that is a 20-mark question, and it's basically like this Italian unification question, the second one, in terms of it's 3 debate points with an introduction and conclusion. So the only difference really is in introduction and conclusion for both of them. For the Italian unification, that's what it has as well. So it's 3 debate points asking you to investigate a question, so make sure you include your statements, your judgments at the start of each paragraph. You include examples, you describe those examples and show why they're important and significant for that question, why you decided to include them. And then you can link that to the evaluation part where you evaluate the whole factor that you're looking at in that paragraph. And then also make sure you to link it to another factor to sort of compare the strengths and weaknesses of whether that is more important or less important. And then also by doing that linking in the paragraph, it helps you to reach a judgment as a mini judgment at the end of each of the paragraphs themselves. And then also, obviously, at the end, you need to come to a overriding judgment where you summarise basically what you said in your answer, and you come to an overriding judgment about the question and make sure it's specific to the question, because if it's not, the examiners will mark you down for that, and not referring directly to the question will mean that your paragraphs aren't answering the thing you're meant to answer, and it looks, as much as you might have detailed examples about things, they're not the correct detailed examples to use. So make sure you are looking at the question regularly and comparing what the question is trying to tell you. It's trying to ask you to do. Look at the key words, sort of assess or evaluate, or to what extent. Just look at those key phrases to help you understand what sort of question or what the question is asking you to do and what sort of question it actually is. So make sure both of the questions, you look directly at the question. Obviously, the first one is a lot of work. 4 sources to evaluate in about 50 minutes with an intro conclusion. You also have to have time to read the sources to actually understand what they're saying. So that's quite a time-consuming one. So you could extend it maybe 55 minutes. I wouldn't suggest doing that because obviously the 20-mark question, if you do 50 minutes for the first question, then you would have 40 minutes for the 20-mark question. So I suppose you could have 35 minutes for a 20-mark question, but it just depends on timings. And also, obviously at the end, if you finish both in time and you've got time to check, make sure you check over your work, look for any mistakes, just read over it as if you sort of have fresh eyes idea. It'll be difficult because obviously you know what you have written, so make sure you just keep going over it, but obviously checking over your work is a good thing to do at the end of your exam. But yeah, if you follow those tips and there's guidance, the guidance from your teachers and people at school, then obviously you'll do very well. Just keep practicing revision, exam technique, just looking at different questions and planning answers to see, or to show yourself that you can actually plan an answer and you know how to structure the question correctly to get those marks. And yeah, you do very well, I think. So that's it for the video today. Don't know when the next video will be, but it'll be out soon probably. Well, I hope so. But yeah, thank you for watching this video. If you are new, please subscribe. Hit the like button down below. Share the video with loads of people. Expand the channel, I suppose. And I'll see you again soon for another video, probably in the coming days. Thank you for watching.